Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
Coming up today on The Story.
I was singing, auditioning everywhere. I was functioning as a professional opera singer, and that was all the way through those 15 years. I met two of the three tenors. One of them had me perform with his nephew, Jose Carreras, and then Placido, I did a Wagner opera with him. So big names, big voices, and they considered me one of the bigger voices.
The Story.
G'day, I'm Jimmy Colfax. Welcome to The Story. That's the singing of our guest today, opera singer Michele Hodgson. She began singing in church ministry when she was a teenager and then went on to sing at major opera houses in Europe with all the big names in the business like Placido Domingo and Andrea Bocelli. However, after going through a painful divorce, she says she lost her way and stopped going to church. Today, Michele will share her story and how God reached out to her at her lowest point and turned everything around. She's chatting with Eric Scatterbo in our Melbourne studios.
Michele Hodgson, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Hello. How are you?
Glad to have you with us, and thanks so much for coming down. You drove about an hour to get to the studio here.
Yes, from the north of Melbourne.
Which is where you're from originally?
Yes, I actually went back after my big international career. I pretty much came back to the same spot.
Oh, okay. And I have to ask you, what was it like with these big names in the business?
Wow, yeah. They're pretty much normal people with a special gift. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are, they've used their gifts to the fullest. I was astounded by the quality of the voices. Working with them, it was just like a magical time. It was fantastic, in the big opera houses and it was particularly in Barcelona, and also Italy as well.
Now you sang a love duet with who?
Andrea Bocelli, yes. And that was a bit of a surprise actually, because while I was studying in the Florence Opera, one of the agents heard me in one of the performances there and said, "Oh, you have to meet Andrea. He'll like you." What? So I was quite surprised. I brought my whole family, my kids and my ex-husband at the time. Mm-hmm. We went to his home and he said, "Come to I'm having a party. I'm having an."
Oh wow!
he said, "Come. I'm having a party at my home for Christmas, and I would love you to be there as my guest." I thought, this is very special. Yeah. So at this event, after the dinner, my kids were playing with his two kids. They're about the same age. Yeah. And then I had the pleasure of being invited to sing the La Bohème duet, Love Duet, with him.
Oh,
it was so special at the end with his grand piano in his beautiful home in
just
Tuscany.
Right there
in his home.
Oh my goodness!
So there was a lot of standing ovation after the singing. It was beautiful.
Well, how many people were there?
It wasn't a huge thing. It was a home thing of probably about 20, 30 people maybe, or probably even less, actually, 20 people, something like that.
Well, they liked it.
They loved it, yeah. And it was.
Would you say that was kind of like the highlight or one of the highlights?
For the night, yeah. Oh, and for my in my Italian sector of my career, I did sing in the Bobbly Gardens. I did an opera there as part at the end of my educational stint with the Florence Opera Young Artist Program. So then suddenly from there to Bocelli's house, it was just astounding. But,
okay. Well, we will get back to the high points, the highlights of your opera career.
That's right.
But first, let's go back to where it all started in Melbourne or northern Melbourne.
Yes.
That's where you were born and raised,
I was
as you
born
said?
in Preston, actually.
But you sound like you have just a touch of an accent.
I was raised in an Italian family.
Okay.
But I've got a Spanish from living in Spain for so long.
Yeah.
I did 15 years in Spain.
Yeah.
With my performance, I've sort of have a remnant of that Spanish accent that won't go away, which I don't want to go away. Muy bien, me gusta, me gusta. So, yeah. And so I was raised in Melbourne. My mum, it was sort of a tragedy actually in a sense, because my mother has severe rheumatoid arthritis, and she had that all my childhood. I was born to her in the midst of her pain, and she met my father in rehab actually to get a job with her disease, and my father had disease called epilepsy.
Okay.
From he had a major accident, brain accident from a convulsion from a fever as a child. So he was left with them so both were suffering young people, but they found each other, which was beautiful. I was
in
the
recovery.
fruit of that. And and they
okay.
both, so I was born from two very hurt people. And I was like the little angel at the time. So, but unfortunately, my father couldn't cope with the relationship and the young baby. He was only 23 at the time. My mum was 21, and he left. So there was a divorce there. It was very tragic. But I was raised with my Sicilian actually grandparents' home with my mum, and that's where all my love of music began. Actually,
yes. Now, you were sharing with me that you started singing at a very young age.
Very.
And not just la-di-da-da, I mean, but...
No, I had a vibrato. I was.
What does that mean?
Well, it's the oscillation of the voice. Like the different. Well, a white voice. Most children have this very white, pure voice. But I had.
Are you saying white?
They call it the white voice.
Really?
It's like a flat sort of tone.
Okay.
But then I was a little 5-year-old with this. Like a little bit of a Shirley Temple or something. I don't know. But my mum was...
Where did you get that?
I just had it. I just always sang that way. I always sung with the vibrato. I had it from the beginning. I didn't have to create it. It was there.
Yeah.
I sang in church, so I was raised in Catholic tradition, and I was involved in the music. My auntie was a singer there. My grandmother sang in the choir. There was a lot of singers, and all my family sang, and I was involved in singing in the Catholic Church for most of my childhood.
Okay, so that was your upbringing.
My upbringing. And then as I got into my 15th year, the rebellion began.
Oh.
As it does. My mother and I didn't see eye to eye quite a bit. And then what was great for our relationship was going to a Catholic charismatic church. And
which tends to be very biblically oriented.
I know. And it was, for me, it was an eye-opener, because that was where I think I got my first taste of that type of music, which
charismatic,
the charismatic music, but also the openness of the music, and I was fascinated by that at first. I was sitting in the Catholic charismatic, listening to them sing.
Do you remember?
Yes, very. Even the song was about Abba Father or something, and it touched me so deeply. And then suddenly,
which would be the exact opposite of the formal Catholic singing, like Ave Maria, which is beautiful.
Which I loved. I sung all those things.
But beautiful in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a different style. But what it was beautiful was the words. The words were very powerful and it really touched me, because personally, having been abandoned pretty much from my dad, I was 15 and I didn't meet him. I didn't know him.
Oh, really?
I hadn't seen him. I saw photos, but that was all. Suddenly, I'm in the church singing Abba Father, Father, you are my Father. And it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Well, because you had that absence.
Yeah, and I thought, I'm not abandoned. I have a Father.
Yeah.
And I had...
Oh, that would really speak to you.
It spoke so, like, volumes. And then suddenly I had this sort of, like, it woke me up to... the whole thing about Christ, Jesus dying for me, and it all the things I heard, grew up with the Catholic in Catholic Church, suddenly hit me. I said, He died for me, personally,
it became personal.
like a personal thing, and I was like, God is my Father, Jesus is my Savior, and I had a real eye opener, like an eye opener moment, and it changed. I could say it changed my life, and I was inspired to sing more of that style and sing the contemporary type hymns as well. It was very special for me at that time.
You were a bit timid at that time?
Very timid. I when I played the piano, because I had trained in 8 years in piano, I didn't feel timid in front of people when I played my piano or did music in general. But then as a speaker, I would not speak.
Which is a different thing.
Which is totally different. Yeah. I felt very vulnerable. So suddenly I started to grow in my confidence after that point. And, it was just a wonderful experience.
So you began to grow in your singing?
Yeah, I did. I actually went to a different church after that. I visited a church, and the pastor was a Pentecostal church, and the pastor said to me, "Why don't you sing this song?" And he handed me music. I had never sung. I attempted to sing it, but I've never sung in public in a classical style. And this pastor handed me Jerusalem and "O Holy Night" for Christmas, and I said, "I've never sung this before," and it just fit me like a glove. I started singing classical items in the church.
With your vibrato?
With my vibrato. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. You have to watch that. I don't know. I blow out the microphone, but I was singing softly.
I don't know if our microphones can handle it, but it was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So that was the beginning.
Yeah, I started to build my confidence as a person. I was already married at that time with my ex-husband.
Now, how old are you though?
I was 19.
Okay.
Very young.
Married at 19?
Married at 19, yeah. I had my first child at 21. And my second at 23. So I had my little unit, my little family, with my ex-husband who was studying conducting. See, this is how it all came together. He was a musician before I was. I had actually finished studying and high school and studied nursing, which I didn't complete, and then switched into music afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a bit late in the music department, but it was so fast because what happened, there was a prophetic word in my church. This was quite impacting. This actually impacted my life, the direction of of our life at the time. It was an American prophetic speaker who came to the church, and he spoke and said, he just picked me out of nowhere, and he said, "You," pointing to me, and I was like, oh, here we go, what's this?
Yeah.
And he said, I see you in front of a big orchestra, and there's like all this audience listening to you sing. With 3,000, he said 3,000 people, and I thought, wow, me? Little old me from Reservoir?
Because at the time,
no way, I had this is where I felt.
You sang at a few church services.
I did. The biggest thing was maybe 100 or 200 people or something, and I took it on.
Yeah.
I took it on. I said, I believe this. If God could do it, I might not be on my own strength, be able to do it, but He can do anything. Really, I believed it was true, and we went to the VCA. We auditioned for the opera course, Victorian College of the Arts. And we did a 3-year course in that together. He did conducting, I did opera singing. And by the 3rd year, I was already singing an opera in the comedy theatre. It's like total turnaround of life. I was singing, I did La Boheme, would you believe that?
Oh, okay.
When I did the Bocelli that I sang, but I did that whole role in the comedy theatre.
Which is one of the most predominant opera roles.
Yeah.
Which is the limit of my understanding of opera.
It's one of the most loved Puccini's because of its romantic, and it's very accessible, the story. So that was my first role, and I was in the paper. I was getting photos,
It's all happening.
video.
Yeah.
I thought, God, we've opened this door that I had no idea could be opened, and I blessed him for that. The next thing you know, I won the Acclaim Awards, which is a scholarship here in Melbourne for young artists, and that's what took me to Europe.
Oh, okay. And where specifically? In Europe?
Florence, in Italy. Florence, the Opera of Florence.
Which is opera home city. I mean,
yeah, it's the center. It's the high Italian center of art culture.
You're listening to The Story. Our guest today is opera singer Michele Hodgson, who's originally from Melbourne. But as we just heard, as a young adult, she won a prestigious scholarship to sing in Europe. We'll find out what happened next in her exciting life journey when we return.
If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Colfax and this is The Story. Our guest today is opera singer Michele Hodgson, who's sharing her life journey with us. As we heard before the break, after growing up in the Melbourne area, she won a scholarship for young artists to sing in Europe. Now we'll hear what happened next in her life as an exciting adventure begins.
I was amazed because I had a simple upbringing. I had a love of classical music from my grandmother.
you had a natural vibrato.
I had a natural vibrato, which grew into a trained vibrato. Sing. I got my training. I did extensive training. As soon as I got the prophecy, when that happened, I was at getting 2 days a week training. It's a lot of training.
Yeah.
And I knew this is where it's going to take me. And I won the Acclaim and ended up in Florence.
So in a sense, you weren't surprised.
No, not by that time. I believed it. I was rolling with it, but I was so excited with where our lives were going with my and had to bring my kids along. So I had a little 5 and 6. At that time, by the time I was at Europe, I had a little 5-year-old and a little 7-year-old boy and a girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Well, then the Bocelli thing happened. People were talking about me. One of the conductors in the Florence Opera, it was a chorale conductor, chorus conductor. He said to me, we could establish you in a full contract for several years in Barcelona if you're willing to take that. And as a young singer with 2 kids to think about, and my husband couldn't work. Yeah. He wasn't working at the time, so I had to take the responsibility, and I took on a chorus position. It was what they call reforce of the chorus, so a big voice that could join the voice of the opera house. It's actually the biggest opera house of Barcelona, one of the biggest in Spain, and I sang opera there in the chorus, and that's when they noticed me there, and I auditioned for solo. It doesn't really happen very often, but God opens doors. And I ended up singing main roles in the Opera of Barcelona, which is where big names all come.
Yeah.
It's called the Liceo.
So at that point, are you pinching yourself? Is this really happening?
I was like, it was I did pinch myself in a good way, though. It was sort of like, this is so special. And I felt I belonged there. I didn't feel like I was inferior. I felt my voice was at that standard.
But interestingly, you felt you were doing what God wanted you to do.
That was definitely what God was wanting me to do at the time.
For the Lord,
because I didn't have to push anything. It was just flowing. I auditioned. I got the jobs. I met people. I met 2 of the 3 tenors. One of them had me perform with his nephew. Who was a tenor as well. That was Jose Carreras, which is he was.
I'll let you pronounce that. Yeah.
Jose Carreras. So it's a good, beautiful name, Jose Carreras.
Oh, I love it.
And then Placido, I did a Wagner opera with him. So
The big names.
yeah, big names, big voices, and they considered me one of the bigger voices.
So you were truly an up-and-coming star in the opera scene.
Absolutely. I was auditioning Real. I was doing Tosca, around
these
Spain
are really
and France.
Big things.
Very big things. This is important things. Yeah, I was singing, auditioning everywhere. I was getting roles. I was functioning as a professional opera singer and teacher. I love teaching. So that was, I like to share the gift. So and that was all the way through those 15 years.
So that's all sounding fantastic, wonderful. Everything's happening. You're doing it, and you know the Lord wants you to sing.
Yeah. Yeah, we were regularly at church. I was in Barcelona. There was an Anglican church, an Anglican charismatic. I think they called it evangelical at the time, but that was a beautiful church of English-speaking people.
So you're growing as a Christian?
I was continuing my faith. My husband and my kids grew up in children's ministry there, and I was enjoying my singing. We actually took the position of music directors there too.
So you're helping out at church as well in ministry.
Yeah, all the way through, and it was very special at that time.
Okay, so it's all happening. It's sounding like a movie or something.
Oh, it was a dream come true. I was wearing the gowns. I was doing the TV appearances. I sang on TV. I was speaking on radio in Spanish, which
okay.
I was on TV with my daughter. You know, it's
really?
My daughter's a singer as well.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it was just so I was getting known around the traps for my singing. As a soprano at the time, I was a spinto, what they call spinto soprano, which is dramatic, and I also sung.
I am learning so much about the opera scene.
Well, they called me a falcon in Europe because
is that a good thing?
It's a very rare thing. A falcon is a woman's voice who can sing high soprano or reasonably high soprano and mezzo soprano as well. So because I have low resonance, so
a wide range.
I did various roles from Carmen, which is Carmen Cavaliere Rusticana, lower mezzo roles, and I also did Tosca and Leonora from Il Trovatore, really high voice things. Mozart as well. Yeah, so I was sought after for both types of voices. Yeah, which was quite exciting.
Sounds too good to be true.
Yeah,
living the dream. But then,
yeah. Well, as life gets more difficult, like anybody is not. No one's immune.
Yep.
My husband and I were starting to grow apart, and it got to the point where I was trying to hold on to a marriage. But the career was getting hard, my kids, and it was just really, very difficult. And my husband was unhappy, and he left, and I felt abandoned again.
Oh, which goes back to when your father left.
Yeah, it was it's just like a reflection again. But and what was sad, and I had quite a lot of shame about this, is that I didn't reach out to God at that time. I felt like I needed to be by myself, which was, but that's a tragedy to do that because you need support, and I always encourage people, even my students, when they go through sorry, I'm very emotional now, but when they're going through all that type of hardship, don't be alone. Yeah. I was by myself.
Well, that's what the devil wants us to do. Yeah. Just isolate and kind of lick your wounds.
Yeah, but I isolated in a very big way. I was isolated from my family, from my friends at church.
Well, that was part one of Eric Scadabo's conversation with opera singer Michele Hodgson, who's originally from Melbourne, but won a scholarship to sing in Europe when she was a young adult. There, she sang with the big names in the business, like Placido Domingo and Andrea Bocelli, and it looked like the sky was the limit for her singing career. But sadly, as we just heard, her marriage broke up and she says that she lost her way and isolated herself away from God and her Christian friends. Looking back, she realises this was a tragic mistake, but one that is all too easy to fall into. When we're hurting or ashamed, there's tendency to just want to be by ourselves and isolate. But it is at these trying times that we most need God and our trusted friends to rely on. As it says in the Bible, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Well, thank you for joining us for part 1 of Michele Hodgson's story. Until next time, I'm Jimmy Colfax, encouraging you to share your story with someone today.
Next time on The Story.
I felt totally trapped, and I realised I was in that last year before I was very ill. I realised, I'm still singing, would you believe? Through all this, I'm still doing big concerts and travelling and so on. But inside I was not with the Lord. I was broken.
Opera singer Michele Hodgson was living the dream in Europe and singing with all the big names in the business when she says she lost her way. After a painful divorce, she began to isolate from her friends and the Lord. We'll hear the miraculous way God gets her attention next time.
The Story.
Just another way Vision is helping you look to God daily.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.